Now, Game Week 29 is going to be a really popular time for FPL managers to use their free hit. And if you're one of those managers, then this video is for you. I just wanted to get a couple things out of the way before going through an actual, well, my favourite free hit draft. And I think it's important to go through these things as well, because some of these tips might be obvious to you, some of them might not be, right? Feel free to skip ahead if you know all this already, go straight to the draft, whatever. But I feel like some of this information might be useful even for experienced FPL managers, right? So just a few tips around the free hit. I'm assuming you know what the free hit does, right? You get 1 week where you get to choose any team that you like, and your team resets to as it was the previous week before. Now, once you've confirmed that you want to play your free hit, you can't cancel it. And regardless of how many free transfers you have before you hit the button, you'll be left with 1 free transfer the following game week, which would of course be game week 30. Now, you can choose to make a transfer in game week 29, activate the free hit chip, trying to get my words out, but it won't save in your game week 30 team. So your free hit will wipe whatever you do in game week 29, basically. If you choose to make any free transfers beforehand, they'll all be forgotten about come game week 30 with your free hit. Also, your non-free hit team will still be affected by price changes. That's one thing to bear in mind. So if you've got players that are probably going to plummet in price, it doesn't really matter if you use your free hit. You know, you can't sell them to avoid that. That's going to happen to you. So just a few things to bear in mind there that you might not already know. Now, just before we get into the draft itself, I thought it'd be useful just to have a quick look at the fixtures we've got. 4 fixtures, 8 teams in total that actually play in Game Week 29. We've got Burnley, Brentford, Luton, Forest, Fulham, Spurs, and West Ham, Aston Villa. Now, on the face of it, it's not the most exciting game week, right? Granted, I'll give you that. But I think with the amount of goals that are being scored in the Premier League this season, you can guarantee that regardless of which teams play each other, there are going to be goals in those games, right? And when you look at the clean sheet odds, these are courtesy of DraftHound, I think that's kind of telling. The best team, most likely team to keep a clean sheet in Game Week 29 is Brentford. They've got Burnley away, and they only have a 31% chance of keeping a clean sheet. So to me, that says there's going to be lots of goals, and we'll get onto the team now. So starting off then with the goalkeepers and defenders, like I said, I don't think there are going to be many clean sheets to go around. So it's much of a muchness in defence. Goalkeeper, I've gone with Flecken. He's got the best clean sheet odds as we saw for Game Week 29. He's actually the top keeper for expected points according to DraftHound. Reguilon, Porro and Doty, I think are the 3 best defenders you can pick from an attacking perspective. I'm not sure any of them will keep a clean sheet. I've got to say, I think Fulham could score against Tottenham, although they have just, of course, kept a clean sheet against Villa. Reguilon and Doty obviously pretty bright going forward. One comment I would have about Reguilon, and we'll get to him more as a player in a second. He was injured for Game Week 28. He didn't appear in the Brentford starting lineup. He was confirmed to have a minor hamstring injury. After the game, I've seen a quote from Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, saying he should be fit for the Burnley game. So if you were put off going for Reguilon on your free hit in Game Week 29 after him not being in the team last week, we've had that news from Thomas Frank now. Obviously, it's best to wait for more news to confirm that he's actually fit. Hopefully, someone asks him the correct questions in the press conference. But given the position we're in at the moment this week, I think it's worth going for him. Areola on your bench. I mean, your bench defenders don't really matter. I think Flecken's definitely going to play for Brentford, right? Might as well have Areola as your backup. Emerson, it's probably worth just banking on a West Ham defender in there. And I would say Nottingham Forest under Nuno. They seem to be a more defensive team than they were under Steve Cooper, right? They're definitely struggling to score goals, I've noticed. But defensively, they're not looking too bad. And is it Neco or Nico Williams? I can't remember how to pronounce his first name. But I do think he's a sensible option. Now, he does play Luton, who are pretty gung-ho when it comes to goal scoring. They seem to score in pretty much every game. So how likely is he to keep a clean sheet? I don't know, but I think it's worth going for him on my bench. These are the 6 goalkeepers and defenders I'm going to go for. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Reguilon because I think he's probably the most controversial pick in this team. If he does play, I think he's definitely got the best combination of expected minutes and expected goal involvement across the Brentford defence if he's fit. And that also means with their highest, Brentford having the highest clean sheet odds, it means that across all the defenders for Game Week 29, I personally think he's the best combination of pretty much a guarantee to start, of course, if he's not injured. Expected goal involvement and clean sheet odds. So I think he's probably, if he's fit, the best defender in the game for Game Week 29. And I would say as well, he's looking pretty bright for Brentford from an attacking perspective. They're relying on him quite a bit to go forwards. And maybe with Mbeumo back fit for Game Week 29 as well, could there be a bit of a link-up going on there and potentially some attacking returns? We do, of course, just have to keep an eye on his fitness, right? Like I said, hopefully one of the people in the press conference asked Thomas Frank the direct question, is Reguilón fit or not? We have to wait and see on that news. But right now, given that Thomas Frank said he should be fit for the Burnley game, I think you've got to go for him. On to the midfield then, and I've gone for Son, Douglas Luiz, Bowen and Maddison. You can see there, Son is currently my pick for captaincy, but you'll see at the end of the video, I'll cover that in a bit more detail, because I think there are genuinely 3 or 4 players you could pick to be your captain in Game Week 29, and it is pretty close. But Son, in my opinion, is the best option. I think he's on penalties, plays 90 minutes every game, and he's the central striker for Spurs, right? And they got a decent fixture against Fulham. I think he's a really nice option, you know. Regardless of whether you actually want to captain him, I think he is definitely a shoe-in for your team, right? Douglas Luiz, I'll talk a bit about him because, unfortunately for him, John McGinn got sent off in Game Week 28, which means he's obviously not going to be in the Villa team for 29. And I think that leaves a little bit of a question mark as to Douglas Luiz's role. Will he play as that centre defensive midfielder? And will that sort of retract from his attacking returns perspective? I don't know. I think kind of have to wait and see on that one. But regardless, I think he's a great option. You know, the guy just keeps chipping in with goals and assists in almost every game, it feels like, at the moment. Of course, that didn't happen in Game Week 28, but I wouldn't let one game put me off. He's now to start for Aston Villa on penalties and plays 90 minutes. And he's excellent for bonus points as well when he gets an attacking return. I think he's got 25, 26 bonus points. I think about 125 points in total in the game. And nearly, well, 25 of them have been bonus points. That's how strong those points are for him. And I think that's definitely a good string to his bow. And he's definitely one of the best players at this price point, right? No doubt in my mind. Yeah, he's nailed for 90 minutes and on penalties for Villa and seems to be doing decently from open play as well. I really like him as an option. Other midfielders I've gone for, Jarrod Bowen and James Maddison. Really like Jarrod Bowen. I mean, nailed for 90 minutes. He's in great form for West Ham off the back of a hat-trick and assist, unfortunately blanked in Game Week 28. But I do really like him as an option. And then James Maddison off the back of a goal in Game Week 28 against Villa. It's a really nicely taken goal from him as well. He just seems almost focal to everything Spurs do from an attacking perspective. So for that reason, I mean, you've got to go for him. And like I said with Son, I think the Fulham fixture is really good. And there should be some goals in that for Spurs. A quick look at the forwards then. I've gone for Watkins, Toney and Morris up front. And I'll admit, there is a bit of a benching headache with this free hit draft. Do you start Douglas Luiz, Morris or Bailey? You can start 2 of the 3 basically. Personally, I've gone for Douglas Luiz and Morris just because they take the penalties for their respective teams. I am, as you probably know if you've watched any of my previous videos, I'm just a big fan of penalty takers in FPL, and particularly players that are nailed on to start, they play 90 minutes and they take penalties. It means that at any point in a game, even if their team isn't playing well, they've always got a chance of scoring a goal. I just really like that as a string to their bow. So for that reason, I'm going to start Douglas Luiz and Morris over Leon Bailey. But you know, if you have a different opinion, then absolutely fine to start Bailey. I don't think there's too much in it. I think Watkins and Toney pick themselves. I mean, the guy's absolutely fantastic. Watkins, 31 attacking returns so far this season. I know he blanked against Spurs, but I would like to think that game as a one-off. And then Ivan Toney, I think he's one of the best forwards in the league. Now to start for Brentford, plays 90 minutes, takes their penalties, and he's also on free kicks without Mbeumo being in the team. But I have seen that Mbumo's back in training, so maybe that might help Toney, to be honest. I'd say he's an outside chance of a captaincy as well. I'd say of the 3 captain options being probably Son, Watkins and Toney, Toney has probably the best fixture of all of them, right? With Son playing Fulham, Watkins playing West Ham and Toney playing Burnley, I'd suggest that Burnley are the weaker of those 3 teams. So he is a potential captaincy option, particularly if you're looking to chase. Obviously, like I said, we'll get onto captaincy in a second. But yeah, that's the team. 3-4-3. I think, like I said, it makes sense to have 3 defenders and absolutely load up on the midfield and forwards, right? Because, like I said, it might not be the most exciting game week from a defender's perspective, but like we've seen across the whole Premier League season so far, there are definitely going to be goals. And to round off the video, I just wanted to talk about captaincy, and I'm going to use a couple of sources of expected points data to do so. Draft Hound is quite interesting at the moment. It has Watkins leading, Bowen in second place, and Son in third place for expected points. So they're telling you to captain by those expected points Watkins. FPL Review, they've got Son leading, and I've got to say, I think I agree with FPL Review. Yes, Watkins across the season so far has had more attacking returns than Heung-min Son has, but I just have a feeling that with Son taking penalties, it just gives him the edge. I don't know how you feel in FPL, let me know in the comments, but I always feel uncomfortable when I'm putting the armband on a player that doesn't take penalties for their respective teams. Partly from an emotional perspective, because when their team gets a penalty, you can't get excited about it, and partly because it just means they can score, like I said previously, in any game, at any point, regardless of how well their team is playing. They just need to win a dodgy penalty. You know, we've seen with VAR how common, interferences in play are with VAR and decisions, etc. It means there's so many more penalties basically than we have seen previously, right? And I just think that gives Son just a little bit extra over Watkins. And I say the minutes, to be honest, there's not much to share between the minutes. I think Son, Watkins and Tony, they're both 3 nailed 90 minutes, man. And you can see there, those are my 3 captaincy picks, and FPL Review largely agrees with me. So I think Son is the safe bet. Although if you're looking to chase, I really don't mind Tony as an option, because like I said, out of the 3 players, he's got the best fixture and he ticks the same boxes that Son and Watkins doesn't tick the box. He ticks the same boxes that Son does, right? He's nailed on for his team, the talisman, and he takes their penalties. So I'd say captain for me, definitely Son. I'm not looking to chase. But if you are and looking to make up some ground, I think weeks where there are multiple options for captaincy are the time where you can go a bit different. Game week 29 could be that week with Ivan Toney. Alright, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Let me know in the comments what you think of that free hit draft of mine. If there's any players you take out or put in. One thing I have noticed when watching it back is I don't have a Nottingham Forest midfielder. I've seen people going for Alanga, Gibbs-White, and Hudson-Odoi. I mean, respect you if you want to do that, but under Nuno, Nottingham Forest have not looked very good at scoring goals. For that reason, I just can't bring myself to pick one of their midfielders. But, if you have a different opinion to me, I'd be interested to hear it in the comments. So, yeah, let me know what changes you'd make to that draft of mine. But if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave me a like rating. You can subscribe to the Goal and Goal channel, which should be just there, to see more content from me. And I will see you in my next video.